in the middle of an open plain. If they didn't already have unmanned aerial vehicles orbiting overhead, he'd have been very surprised. Still, there was no sense taking chances. Removing a signal flare from his pocket, he pointed it skyward and pulled the release pin. A single red projectile shot upwards, reaching about 100 feet before igniting, spewing sparks and orange-colored smoke as it drifted slowly back to Earth on its miniature parachute. The choppers soon changed course, the lead aircraft quickly angling towards him, while its counterpart turned more sluggishly, weighed down by the heavy weapons and armor. "This is it," Drake said as the choppers closed in on them. "It'll be over soon." The woman made no attempt to flee or resist as the lead aircraft's nose flared upwards, slowing its forward momentum and engulfing them both in a hurricane of dust and tiny rocks from the rotor downwash. Drake threw up an arm to shield his eyes, watching as the big chopper slowly settled on the ground about 50 yards away. The rough, mountainous terrain that dominated the eastern swathe of this country had always been difficult to pacify, its heights and tortuous valleys naturally lending themselves to ambushes and guerrilla warfare, allowing the inhabitants to confound invading armies for centuries. Death by 1,000 cuts. His companion had made a career out of doing just that, but that had been a different time, a different war. Anyway, ambushes were the last thing on Drake's mind now. He'd made sure to choose a wide and relatively flat plateau where he knew a helicopter could set down without difficulty. The second Black Hawk gunship continued to orbit overhead, its cannons and rockets standing by to decimate any enemy that dared present itself. Drake could actually see the barrels of its 20mm guns tracking around to keep him in their sights. As the main engines of the first Black Hawk powered down, Drake watched the side door slide open and 6 men in full combat gear pile out, quickly establishing a perimeter around the landing site, the barrels of their M4 assault rifles sweeping the surrounding rocks and cliff faces. Drake could just hear their hushed voices as they called out to each other over their radio net, confirming the area was clear. He made no moves as this was happening, just let them get on with their task. He'd been in their position many times in his life, and knew they'd be nervous, edgy, hyped up on adrenaline, expecting the worst. No sense provoking a fight he couldn't win. Aside from this, he paid the fire team little attention. They were just grunts here to test the waters and absorb the first hits if they came. Drake was more interested in the small group still lingering aboard the chopper, protected by its armored hull, while their underlings secured the area. Seconds ticked by as he waited for them to make their move, waited for the leader of this formidable display of military power to finally show themselves. It happened a full minute after the chopper had landed. The side door slid open once more, and 2 people emerged. First out was an operative like the others who had come before him, tall, well-built and imposing, his considerable physical presence enhanced by the Kevlar vest and webbing that covered his torso. He moved with the natural confidence of a predator. This was a man born to end lives. His face might have been called handsome but for the conspicuous scar that trailed down one side, extending from his jawline to above his left eye in a single straight gash, the result of a knife fight that had ended before either he or his opponent could claim victory. The M4 carbine at his shoulder was lowered but held in a firm grip, ready to be swung into action at a moment's notice. His face, so often given to expressions of malicious glee, was cold and stony in that moment. All business. Even he looked fearful of what might happen next. Jason Hawkins was intimately familiar to Drake, and all too dangerous in his own right. But they both knew it was the woman he was protecting who was really in charge here. The woman who had exited the chopper not with the solid, confident leap of a trained operative, but with the more cautious and tentative step of a civilian. The woman who was wearing an expensive tailored suit instead of camo fatigues, and who looked as uncomfortable in her Kevlar vest and winter jacket as any VIP or government dignitary forced to visit conflict zones. The woman